Greetings, comrades. One of the few things that seems to have surprised many observers over the on the war on Ukraine has been India's position on the war on Ukraine. It was expected by several people in the West, perhaps, that India, being a liberal democracy, perceived to be a liberal democracy, would naturally support the United States and the liberal democracies of the world in its condemnation of Russia and enjoining any sanctions or any effort to contain Russia. India surprised the world by adopting a neutral position, one that condemns the war in a very abstract and obfuscated manner, but does not take a position against Russia. India has not joined sanctions. India has abstained from resolutions. And even now, as Prime Minister Modi visits EU countries, we are seeing this topic come up every time of India's position on the war in Ukraine, and countries expecting India to do more, but India continues to disappoint them. Some are perhaps surprised that why a democracy would not stand shoulder to shoulder in solidarity with another democracy being attacked by a country which formally, of course, has some democracy, but functionally is as good as a dictatorship. I'm talking about Russia. Let us be real about foreign policy. Foreign policies, and indeed any policy that comes out of a bourgeois state, even if it's democratic or not democratic, ultimately come down to the interests of its ruling class. States, as we see them, are instruments of class power. And in India's case, the Indian bourgeoisie wields class power, and naturally, it will pursue that interest, it will pursue that policy which is to its interest. Now, let us consider the immediate context. India is one of the world's largest weapons importers, and India buys most of its military hardware from Russia. At the same time, India is one of, or rather, the United States is one of India's largest trading partners. The EU is one of India's largest trading partners. India has extensive commercial and economic ties with the EU and the United States, and it is also purchasing weapons from Russia. See this dualistic policy, this double game. India has kept its options open. Why? Because it is in the interests of the Indian bourgeoisie to do so. From the very beginning, we considered the history of Indian foreign policy from the days of the non-aligned movement. It has followed a policy that will ensure that India is not pitted with or tagged to a certain alliance or a certain bloc. It has done this purely out of necessity and an understanding of its unique and complicated position. India is forever been a middle ground nation, one that is neither in the top ranking powers of the world, it is not one of the advanced nations of the world. At the same time, among developing nations, India has always held an advanced position, one that is more powerful than its peers, one that is richer than its peers, one that is more industrialized than the other developing countries. India is one of the few nuclear powers. India is the fourth most powerful military in the world. India is the fifth largest air force in the world, the seventh largest navy. At the same time, India has one of the largest populations under poverty. India has a largely rural populace. India remains backwards in several key indications. India is not in the lead when it comes to scientific output. India is reliant, for the most part, on purchases to fund its military. India is still the net receiver of foreign investments. At the same time, India is also one of the major exporters of capital within Asia. This odd middle ground forces India to take a position which keeps its options open. One that is neither here nor there. India, in this case, has to choose between Russia, which has been an ally of India since 1971, when the treaty was signed between India and the Soviet Union, that has been renewed and renamed in different ways over time. At the same time, the interests of the Indian bourgeoisie, the commercial interests of most Indian corporations, are tied in with Europe and the United States. India has no interest in breaking one in favor of the other. And when it comes to this war, India is not going to pick a side. This has nothing to do with India's democracy or its ideology. Indeed, if ideology played a deciding role in foreign policy, then the United States of America, which is a Republican democracy, a bourgeois democracy, would not be allied with Saudi Arabia, which is a theocratic monarchy. Interests determine foreign policy, not ideologies, not labels. And when it comes to foreign policy of the bourgeoisie, there is nothing more cynical or hypocritical in bourgeois foreign policy than it is full of cynicism and hypocrisy. And that is proven time and time again. And India is no exception to that. If we consider its own history, even with the Soviet Union, our policy towards the Soviet Union, when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, India did not condemn it. On the contrary, India continued its cooperation with the Soviet Union. It had an interest in it. The Soviet Union was supporting India at the time, and India was supporting Baloch rebels in Pakistan. Afghanistan is the Democratic People's Republic of Afghanistan, from state that had been supported by the Soviet Union, was an ally of India. Najibullah was an ally of India. Crimes committed against the Afghan people were not a concern of the Indian bourgeoisie. They did not care. Similarly, India cooperated with the collaborationist government that the United States set up in Afghanistan, putting in money, training troops, establishing trade relations. India was supporting the US imperial project there. The interests of the Afghan people were secondary to the interests of the Indian bourgeoisie. Afghanistan would always be a target of India for creating a friendly government over there, not to outflank Pakistan. Similar feasts. Look at India's policy towards Burma, for instance, Myanmar. India is cooperating fully with the military junta. It is not going to condemn it. Indian corporations are making deals with the Burmese junta, with the military junta in Myanmar. The interests of the people of Myanmar is not at the forefront here. So we see a duplicity. The country which considers itself the world's largest democracy is perfectly at ease dealing with dictatorships. It's perfectly at ease turning a blind eye to war crimes. It's perfectly at ease condoning the war that Putin has started over Ukraine. Of course, India cannot condone it brazenly. It still has to keep a face to the West. It still has to appease their commercial trading partner. It has to appease their burgeoning relationship with the United States. It has to appease that. Because as far as India is concerned, the United States is in turn indispensable in order to counter China. As long as the Chinese threat exists, India can never distance itself too much from the United States. At the same time, India is already invested in its relationship with Russia. We have to consider these realistic compulsions when we understand how a country would behave and how a nation like India would act. There is no automatic compulsion that a democracy would support a democracy. Such idealisms can only exist in the mind of liberal commentators. Marxists understand and analyze reality as it is. Our understanding is based on material facts as they are. Ideology does play a part in geopolitics only when the bourgeoisie feels threatened. Its very existence is challenged. When it comes to the threat from a non-capitalist country, a socialist nation, when it came to the Soviet Union, when it came to Cuba, there was an ideological component there. That is not the case here. When India is taking a position on the global event. Here, you have a capitalist Russia with imperial ambitions trying to subjugate Ukraine, and the EU and the US with its own imperial interests and ambitions taking a cynical stance against Russia. And I add that it is cynical because the EU, while ostensibly condemning the Russian invasion, is also purchasing Russian oil. There is no embargo on Russian gas yet. They're planning for it, they're talking about it. But so far, they're still purchasing that oil. India too is purchasing Russian oil. When our vision of a worker state will be a vision where a state has a genuine solidarity. There is a genuine solidarity between working people, free from such hypocrisy and cynicism. Our vision of a state is a state that stands up for people, not one that cynically throws them down for some cynical interest or the other. Bourgeoisie stands for nothing but itself. Working class stands for the emancipation of the class and the emancipation of humankind. That is the struggle for socialism. That's